Today I have an SAT writing tip for you that deals with interpreting a graph and applying it to the scenario given in the SAT writing passage. So in this case, to illustrate this tip and trick, I'm going to use SAT Practice Test 8, questions 5 and 6 that deal with the graph shown on the next page right here, the EPA estimates of municipal solid waste discarded in U.S. landfills in 2009. So let's take a look at questions 5 and 6, and as I go through them, I'll really illustrate this tip and trick to you. So question 5, it states, the writer wants to include information from the graph that is consistent with the description of compost in the passage. Which choice most effectively accomplishes this goal? Well, in this passage, if we just read a little bit of this first sentence here, we'll be able to understand what the passage is talking about with compost. We have, in spite of all compost potential uses, however, most of this so-called waste is wasted. According to the EPA, over 13 million tons, well, right now it says of metal. We know we're talking about food waste because we're talking about composting, so we wouldn't want to say of metal ended up in U.S. landfills in 2009, along with 13 million tons of yard debris. We wouldn't want to talk about rubber and leather either, or textiles. We want to talk about food waste because we're talking about composting. So the only answer choice here that's going to be consistent with the description of compost in the passage is D. So here's my tip when dealing with questions of interpreting data in graph. For question 5, obviously we didn't have to interpret anything in the graph because it was just what fit with the passage, right? We wouldn't want to say anything other than food waste because we want to talk about composting. So in that situation, we didn't need to use the graph. But if we look at question 6, we are going to want to potentially take a look at the graph. So let's take a look. It says the writer wants to support the paragraph's main idea with accurate, relevant information from the graph. Which choice most effectively accomplishes this goal? So the key part that I'm seeing here is the word accurate, relevant information from the graph. In order for us to include anything from the graph, we have to check with the graph and make sure that it's accurate and true. So even if only one answer choice looked like it would be logical and support our point, we still have to check in the graph to make sure it's true. So let's take a look at question 6. We have remarkably, and then we're going to input either less glass, more metal, more food waste, or more yard waste was discarded in landfills in that year than any other substance, including plastics or paper. So which substance had the highest disposal in these landfills? And we see that that's going to be food waste because we have the amount of waste in millions of tons on our y-axis. Our highest bar graph we see is food waste. Okay, so we're going to want to use food waste right there. We see that that is going to be answer choice C. So our correct answer for number 6 will be C. Okay, obviously that supports our point as well because it's showing that food waste, there is a lot of waste, which supports that first sentence we had in our intro saying most of this so-called waste is indeed wasted. Okay, so the big things that you need to understand when dealing with graphs on the SAT writing section are A, if you're asked about something being accurate and relevant to the graph, you have to make sure that it is indeed accurate and relevant to the graph. And that means you have to actually take a look at the graph. You can't just pick the choice that would make sense in the passage, because if it's not true according to the graph, it cannot be the correct answer. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is that you want to make sure you're staying on topic. So even if the graph has something such as in question 5, even if it has rubber and leather or textiles or metal in the graph, you can't just pick one of those even if it was accurate, okay, because it doesn't support the point of the passage. So if we take a look, if we were to say 6 million tons of rubber and leather, let's see if it's accurate. It's probably going to be accurate according to the graph, right? We see rubber and leather, it's right around 6 million. So even though it's accurate to the graph, that doesn't mean it's the correct answer, because we see that 33 million tons of food waste is also accurate to the graph and it supports our point. We want to use the one that's accurate to the graph and supports our point. So anytime you're dealing with a table or a graph, you want to make sure that it's both accurate with what you're saying in the passage and in the graph, and also that it supports your point and what you're saying in that sentence and in that paragraph as a whole. So hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, make sure to have a great day.